Hello, good day, this is Lorenzo. Welcome back to the 10th episode of A Mission a Day. 10. Day 10, Mission 10. If you've seen the previous episode, you remember it was a somewhat successful mission to Joule. It was meant for Val originally. We did come in the neighborhood, but the science instruments got bogged down in the atmosphere of Joule and never returned. They did transmit some science just before being crushed in the dense gas atmosphere of Joule. Because of that mission, we had enough science to unlock here the advanced GravMax negative gravioli detector, some science kit, and this was very important because our mission controller would only give us a mission, the Sputnik mission 4, if we could bring a full sensor package. So we can and we will. This is the mission we are going to play today. It's vanished from the screen. We are going to play this mission today. The mission is to put a probe with all these sensors and 3 antennae in a high polar orbit around Kerbal. So our minimum periapsis is 300 kilometers and the maximum apoapsis is 350. So we should get it between 300 and 350. Inclination between 87 degrees and 93 degrees, meaning a polar orbit, and an eccentricity of less than 0.01. So it has to be fairly circular. Nothing too complex, I don't think. We are going into the vehicle assembly building to see the rocket I made for this, and be prepared. It will be a very basic rocket. 2 solid boosters to boost the upper booster stage off the ground. These 3 large fuel tanks with the engine will be responsible for the brunt of Delta V to put this tiny probe in an orbit or in an almost orbit, and then we have here 2 small fuel tanks and the tiny engine made for ants to either finish the orbital burn or to perform orbital maneuvers to fine-tune the orbit for this probe. Now the mission controller, it was a good thing that we did read it. It specified 3 antennae and I only put here 2, so we're going to revise the vessel like this: 3 antennae. A ship like this, as you might imagine, is not that expensive. It's 35,000 credits, and that's all the better because we only have 65,000 credits. After this, the reward will be 65 again, so we should have in the neighborhood of 100,000 credits again. In our science department, this mission will barely give us any science. In the science department, we are looking at going to Val. We just recently unlocked the docking ports, essential for making large multi-launch vehicles and or refueling landers that then dock back up to the mothership. Before our launch, I'm going to time warp until we are at a sunlit launch for optimum visibility. This launch will provide 0 or barely any science, so the next launch I've not decided what we're going to do. Maybe we can combine one of the missions from the plugin with some science gathering, or we are going to have to send a very cheap probe again. For now though, I'm going to launch into a polar orbit, and as you're accustomed to, unless something strange happens, this will be fast forwarded. See you in space. Well, there we are. I think this is about exactly what the doctor or the mission controller ordered. 333,970 meters on this side and 333,612 meters here. That's about as circular as you're gonna get. For reference, NASA, they call an orbit circular if there is a few kilometers difference. So with this 1/10 scale that Kerbal here is 1/10 the size as Earth is, this margin seems reasonable. And indeed, the mission controller is very happy. All goals are in the green. We actually have a 2 order of magnitude greater circularity then was required, and our inclination is dead on the money. So very well done there. We can hide the finished goal and finish the mission. This means we now have 94,000 krones available for next mission. Still not rich, but it is a lot more than last time. So we are going to see what we can do with this probe. We have quite a lot of delta V left in it. We could send it somewhere and attempt to do science, but for now I am just going to leave it here in its polar orbit. The fuel here can be detached. We will not be doing anything special with that. So we're going to detach the satellite. There we go, detach it and give it just a dab of throttle. We will give it that in a normal direction so that the we will give that in a normal direction so that the size of the orbit doesn't change, only the inclination will change very, very slightly. The aim here is to get away from this spent booster stage, and we'll probably never encounter it again. Circularity has been preserved, and except it's been angled off by like 1/10 of a degree, so these will probably never meet again. We can put the satellite in operational mode. By the way, this is nothing but silly roleplay. This doesn't really do anything. The solar panels are now deployed, so it can get power perpetually, and we will try and run a science experiment for each of these 4 sensors. The pressure data doesn't work, not surprisingly so. The gravity data, that might actually be interesting. We can measure the gravity here, 333 kilometers off Kerbin. So let's do that. Wow! The sensor finds subtle changes in the gravity field of Kerbin. The science team will want to see these readings. Great, we get 60 points. That was completely unexpected. We will do two transmissions of that, just so the science team is sure to have it. And we might be able to squeeze one more research out of this mission. Wow, it does require a lot of power to transmit this data. Oh, it's a gravity scan over Kerbin's highlands. I have got a surprise for you. This mission is going to be a science jackpot, completely unexpected, because here I will show you the benefits of a polar orbit as compared to an equatorial orbit. You can see it's an orbit just like any other, except it's around the poles instead of around the equator. And the equator is the axis on which Kerbin itself rotates, so it spins like a top in the direction of the equator. Like that. It spins in this way, like I'm moving the screen here. Now if you launch an orbit in the same direction, you are going to pass over the same bit of land every time you go around, and this is fine for things like communication satellites, space telescopes, what have you. It has many advantages. You get a little bit of you get a little speed boost from the rotation of the planet. It's easier to rendezvous with ships in such an orbit because you are launching from the same plane always. But if you want to scout your planet to find many different things on the planet, or even if you want to make a map, for instance, it is better to go into a polar orbit. See, if you're orbiting, the physics don't care what the surface of the planet does. You orbit the center of mass, so you orbit the planet regardless of its rotation. So in orbiting this way, the planet actually rotates under you. So in a few orbits, you get to see pretty much all of the planet. And as we have just learned from this gravioli detector, it counts as a different reading from each different biome on Kerbin. And it has a few biomes like highlands, mountains, polar ice caps, shores. So we are going to try, or grasslands. We had the highlands, now we have the grasslands. We are going to try and take a few scans and send them all back to the science team. And this routine mission will have turned out to be a little bit of a science treasure trove. You can bet that this GravMax negative gravioli detector is definitely going to come on future missions. Although I'm a little bit puzzled why. Well, the barometer will read a vacuum. I'm a little bit puzzled as to why we only got 12 points for that. Because let's have a look. We get 60%. Oh, it wasn't 60 already. Grasslands. Well, I'll transmit that again. And then we are going to fast forward time a bit and see how much science we can actually get done. So we are here. And these solar panels, they are great. They actually track the sun. So I could engage the stability system to stop it rotating, but even if the probe was rotating, we could still get solar power, because these panels will then rotate with the sun. Especially after the power failures at Joule, this feels like a wealth of power. So we can switch our orbit now to surface mode. We are zooming over the surface at about 2 kilometers per second, which should lead us to encounter many different biomes and get a lot of data. Grasslands we have already, so we're going to just go for a little bit of time warp and see what we get here. Kerbin's grasslands again. So I think grasslands is the most abundant biome on this planet. The gravity data. Highlands. We had highlands once more, but we're going to repeat that transmission. We have to be sure, after all. And to be fair, this is what research and communications satellites are for, to orbit the planet and to gather data. But this is now something I want to bring on every craft. And if we visit a celestial body, we will go in a polar orbit if at all possible and get some gravioli data, because this is sweet. Over the shores, 60 points for 60%, just transmitting that home. And of course the shores are pretty small, I would think, so I am hoping we can do a second reading of that shore. Right, I'm just going to keep on doing this until we have at least had the ice caps. And I can do that without fast forwarding, because we are almost at the ice caps. This will give us some science, and maybe it will give us some new technologies that will allow us advances in going to Vol. I really want to send a probe to Vol, because we know almost nothing about it. It's a moon of Joules, but what it is made of, does it have an atmosphere, how is the gravity? Kerbin's water, amazing. What's the gravity like? I really don't know, and I know I could just easily look this up on the internet, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to try and find out by sending probes. One thing we learned from yesterday's mission is that a periapsis of 86 kilometers on Joule is too low for aerobraking. You will get caught. So for a next time I'm going to aim at around 100 and see how that goes. Or if we have a lot of delta V in the rocket, we might just go for a propulsive capture. But that is quite expensive in the delta V, and we're not that rich in credits. We only have 100,000, not even that. So any probes we are sending in that direction for now are bound to be pretty small. So almost over the ice caps now. If you recall, in my second or third day I was trying to land on the ice cap, but that just didn't work out. I landed on the highlands, logging gravity data over Kerbin's ice caps. Great. Transmit that. I'm going to do a second transmission of that, and then I'm going back to the Space Center and looking at our scientists. They must for sure be very, very happy indeed. We didn't pass over the deserts yet, but we can go back to the satellite in a few days when Kerbin has rotated. We don't have to wait for that now. If we are ever in a bind with some science points that we need, we can go back to the satellite and get them. So, a fairly routine mission turns out to be incredibly useful. Isn't that the way of science and exploration? I think it is, and it's a testament to the amazingness of this series. That's a bit arrogant maybe, but anyway, I'm pleased, I'm happy, I'm going to the Space Center. Amazing. Let's have a look at the Research and Development building. Here we go, and we had, well, we didn't get a huge amount of science, but we did get some. So we have now 200 points, and here I can see a nuclear icon. That sure looks interesting. Can't click it yet because it's not even a little bit unlocked yet. So I'm going to poke around in this part of the tree. Here we get the larger rockets. Those are always welcome, especially if we're looking to the future and we are going to need some heavy lifters. We need the large rockets, obviously. So what do we have here? We have specialized control technology, the larger pods, the lander cans, the modules, the parachutes, basically everything a spaceship needs. Well, I think all these things count for that, but definitely these. Yes, I'm going to unlock this for 160 science points, and that is immediately about everything we can spend today. Look at that, we unlocked, well, we made the nuclear propulsion available. Nuclear engines don't just burn fuel, they totally annihilate it. Great. 300 science for that. I'm definitely going to want this atomic rocket motor. And what else did we unlock? Large control, basically more of the same, we don't need that so much. And these things are already available. So, I'm going to close here. Tomorrow we are going to have a look at the mission controller. I'm going to have a sneak peek now. I was lying, I wasn't going to close quite yet. We have here the Kerbal. Bring the probe into an escape trajectory out of Kerbin's sphere of influence. This should also be rather straightforward. Yeah, we will be doing this mission, although we get 85,000 credits for this. This mission is going to double as a stealth mission to Val. It does count as being out of Kerbin's sphere of influence, does it not? Anyway, that's for tomorrow. As always, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe, to like it, to place comments and to share it with your friends. I'm sure they'll like it too. Anyway, see you tomorrow. Have a nice evening, morning, night, whenever you're watching. This was Lorenzo. Goodbye.